In this video, I deconstruct just one random example of the BBC's reporting on climate change. Is it a fine example of public service broadcasting, or is it an example of something else entirely? Well, let's have a look. My name's Mallen Baker. This is the Mallen Baker Show for Changemakers. The headline is this: Climate change. Technology no silver bullet. Experts tell PM. Experts have things to say, apparently. Well, that sounds newsworthy. I guess there's been a letter signed by multiple experts. There's been a run of those after all. Some sort of petition, maybe. Let's have a look. Can we trust the silver bullet of technology to fix climate change? The Prime Minister seems to think so. Does he? How do we know? Has he actually said that in those terms? Well, maybe not yet. In a speech due soon, he is expected to pledge his faith in offshore wind power, solar, carbon capture, hydrogen, clean cars and zero-emission aviation. So the BBC correspondent presumably has seen this speech, although we don't have direct quotes from it, so we don't know whether he's mind-reading of the Prime Minister that he thinks technology is a silver bullet that will on its own fix climate change, whether that's accurate or overstated. Okay, did the experts see this speech before they took their initiative? Well, no, because there's no evidence in this article that any experts have taken an initiative to communicate with the Prime Minister. Clean technologies are clearly a huge part of any solution, but the PM is being accused of techno-optimism bias because he does not mention other key factors in reducing emissions. Accused by whom? Experts, obviously. In fact, experts say tackling climate change will need action right across society and the economy, with a host of new incentives, laws, rules, bans, appliance standards, taxes and institutional innovations. They also warn that citizens' behaviour must shift, with people probably driving and flying less and eating less meat and dairy produce. These are public policy proposals, some of them unspecified, some of them quite contentious. Since when did such things simply get transferred to the opinions of experts, reported in as neutral a way as to say, if you had expertise, you too would inevitably see the truth of these responses? But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Take cars. The Prime Minister is due to accelerate the transition towards battery and hydrogen-powered vehicles. But Professor Gillian Annable from Leeds University warns that even electric cars pose their own problems that politicians seem reluctant to acknowledge. Producing electricity and hydrogen requires huge numbers of wind farms or the like, and the cars themselves need resource-hungry tyres and batteries. They also need roads and parking spaces that could otherwise be used for gardens and trees that soak up carbon dioxide, she said. The harsh reality is that we have to find ways to limit the number of cars and the amount we drive them. Gillian Annable is Chair in Transport and Energy at Leeds University. She's no doubt a knowledgeable expert in her field. She's also a supporter, although not a participant to date, of Extinction Rebellion, and thinks that policy on climate change should be more radical than that put forward by the UK's Committee on Climate Change for Net Zero by 2050. No doubt, those are arguable opinions, and she can make a case for them based on her expertise. But it's fair to say that there are transport and sustainability experts with other opinions. Expertise on how something works does not guarantee that you have discovered the only valid opinion about what should be done about it. If that was the case, then experts would never disagree on things, and I don't know if you've noticed, they tend to disagree quite a lot. So you might ask, if Professor Annable hasn't been part of a communication to the Prime Minister, why is her opinion being picked out to be highlighted here? Good question. Then the article goes on to hydrogen. There is widespread agreement that hydrogen will play a role in reducing climate change, but how much and in what industrial sectors is another matter. Since we don't know what Boris Johnson's supposed to be about to say, It's not clear if this is a response to some specific overclaiming on his part. In this case, the expert quoted is Jess Rolston from the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit think tank. She says this: hydrogen can power cars, but electricity seems to have won that technology race. It could heat homes, but electric heat pumps are emerging as a better bet. Hydrogen could be really useful though in industries such as steel making and in heavy transport, including buses that we're already seeing. But it's no silver bullet. Now that's a valid expert opinion. It describes the state of play. It doesn't express a public policy preference. The only vaguely opinionated part is the "it's no silver bullet," which is only an important comment if someone's claiming that hydrogen is indeed a silver bullet. I haven't seen anyone do that. They're not quoted in the article as doing that. The BBC correspondent Roger Harrabin seems to be advancing the case that technology alone is being seen as the silver bullet, in which case the fact that one element of the technology mix, hydrogen, isn't being seen on its own as being a silver bullet versus the other clean technology solutions, so what? Then we move on to the contentious area of aviation. On aviation, the Prime Minister has launched his ambition to devise clean planes. He calls the project Jet Zero. Industry figures appreciate his boosterish support, but critics warn Jet Zero mustn't divert attention from the short-term need for rules and taxes to hold down aviation emissions after COVID. So critics warn, apparently, that we must have rules and taxes. Who are these critics, and are they experts? Kate Hewitt from the Aviation Environment Federation told us this: no zero carbon technology options are currently available for commercial aviation. Fact check true, but sort of obvious, because, if there were, then the Prime Minister wouldn't need an ambition to devise clean planes. You just roll it out, presumably. We need a major rollout of radical new technologies, and we need the capacity to remove remaining aircraft emissions from the atmosphere. But she says that given how far we are from delivering these things, we'll also probably need to fly less. That last sentence is a soft opinion with a probably in it. The rest is a straightforward recognition of the challenges in this area. It's worth noting that the Aviation Environment Federation is a campaigning NGO. It has no doubt developed expertise in lobbying for its positions, and I dare say Kate Hewitt knows her stuff. She has a track record of advising various bodies, and she comes across as knowledgeable in her field. The quote here doesn't directly support Harrabin's assertion that rules and taxes specifically must be involved, although the AEF has lobbied for such things in the past. But to be clear, experience in lobbying for policies does not equal some neutral expertise that has, through analysis, arrived at a public policy proposition as the only logical response. Different agencies lobby for different policies all the time, and they can be valued contributors to the debate. It doesn't make their positions akin to expertise that should simply be deferred to. To go to the extreme example, Extinction Rebellion campaigners have experience in calling for completely impossible demands around zero carbon emissions by 2025. I would suggest that doesn't make them experts. Then we're on to nuclear. UK governments have agonised for decades about nuclear energy, but Boris Johnson recently gave it the nod. That means he's likely to either agree a financial package for a new station at Sizewell or for small modular reactors, or both. But nuclear is still a divisive issue. While it could definitely help to reduce emissions, said Professor Jim Watson from UCL, it's very expensive. Now, Professor Watson is Professor of Energy Policy at UCL's Bartlett School of Environment, Energy and Resources. To play a major role, the cost of new nuclear plants will really need to fall, especially when the costs of other technologies like wind and solar have dropped so far. And nuclear developers will need to show they can build their plants more quickly, because we need all electricity to be low carbon within the next 10 years. He agreed that mini reactors might bring down costs, but said it was far too soon to be certain. Okay, that's fine as far as it goes, although I'm puzzled that an expert opinion would draw the cost comparison between nuclear and variable sources like wind and solar without acknowledging the different roles they'd have to play in the energy grid. Nuclear is seen as important by the Committee on Climate Change because it's a source of always-on baseload power. And you need some of that because the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine. And you can cope with that variability in a mix of energy storage options and like up to a point. But as things stand, there's a limit to the percentage of renewables you can feed into the grid. So cost isn't the only issue. Now maybe that's more complicated than is possible in the space that Harabin is going to give here. Still, you might think it odd that Harabin simply quotes a mildly anti-nuclear expert comment in the way that he does. Traditional environmental campaigners are, of course, hostile to nuclear power and never seem to feel it necessary to explain how to deal with the problem that it's there to solve. It's the sort of thing you might expect a campaigner to do, but not a neutral public service broadcaster. What's Professor Watson calling on the PM to do differently? Nothing specifically, he's just describing the state of play. Nobody's proposing that nuclear should be the only component of the grid, and he doesn't even use the silver bullet phrase here. So what? Finally, we have carbon capture. The Prime Minister has professed himself an evangelist for the technology that captures carbon dioxide as it's emitted from factories and power stations and either stores it in underground rocks or uses it for new chemicals. 2 decades ago, it was touted as a climate saviour, but it's very expensive and has never taken off. Well, wind and solar power were very expensive in their early days, of course, and it didn't seem to represent an impossible obstacle then. The main climate authority, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, says the technology must be used to capture the emissions from trees being burned for energy. This way, the plants suck carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and the emissions are buried, helping to turn climate change into reverse. It's known as bioenergy with carbon capture and storage, BECCS. But the IPCC's Professor Jim Skier says there are potential problems. He explained if the trees are grown on land that would otherwise be used for producing food, then there are problems with food security. And if we plant acres and acres of land with the same type of tree, there are implications for wildlife. Now, of course, carbon capture is a much wider technology than simply that related to biofuels. The problems that Jim Skier identifies here are problems with burning biomass as a fuel, which is indeed exceedingly problematic. I mean, personally, I think it's a huge blind alley which we will quickly retreat from. That's an opinion, of course. But in any case, carbon capture isn't solely focused on that. Again, Harabin's selected expert doesn't make a specific policy recommendation or call on the Prime Minister to do something different. Harabin finishes with this: so much for silver bullets. A long list of policies requires government attention, including standards for new homes, green recovery, food production, planning rules, peat, heat and buildings, meat eating, infrastructure statement, road building, carbon dioxide in soil, medium-term emissions targets, tree planting, energy storage, industrial strategy, appliance standards, and the comprehensive spending review. He then promises, I'll examine some of the non-technology innovations for tackling climate change in a future article. So here's the point. This article is not labelled as editorial or analysis. It's not labelled as an opinion piece. It is headed Experts Tell PM. But it is Roger Harabin, the supposedly neutral BBC journalist, who is telling the PM what he thinks. He's asked a number of his contacts to make some general comments on a range of headings. It's positioned as a news story. It's positioned as a rebuke to the Prime Minister for a speech he hasn't yet made, and a position that Harabin can't quote him actually supporting. It argues for new rules and taxes, even though almost none of the expert quotes are about new rules or taxes. As my viewers know, I support the UK's commitment on net zero by 2050 in line with the IPCC scientific reports. I'm drawing attention to this article as one amongst numerous because it nevertheless is doing things I consider to be dangerous. One, it's public policy activism masquerading as science. It's pushing a position while pretending to be reporting expert evidence. Two, in so doing, it conflates the actual science, the evidence about what's happening in the world, and the public policy responses, which are based on political opinions and philosophies. And in so doing, it serves to damage the role of genuine expertise and science in informing debate and policy decisions. It brings the experts into disrepute, eroding trust. Remember, at the start of the article, Roger Harabin makes a number of claims, specifically that the Prime Minister seems to think technology is a silver bullet to fix climate change, and the PM is being accused of techno-optimism bias. No evidence is provided to support these claims. None of the quotes he gives accuses the PM of anything. None of them were given in response to something Johnson had said or done. It seems that the accuser is rather Roger Harabin, and hence by extension the BBC. Roger Harabin wants you to know that experts say people should be driving and flying less and eating less meat and dairy produce. Those are the obsessions of environmental campaigners. To all appearances, this article is just a gratuitous vehicle to keep up the campaign while pretending to be reporting the news. It's a sort of routine bias that the new Director General, Tim Davie, was meant to be targeting. By the way, I tweeted to Roger Harabin my question on his article. I can't see anything in this article about how these experts communicated with the PM. It reads like editorial comment posing as reporting. I'm sure that's wrong. What did I miss? Although he retweeted a number of glowingly complimentary tweets about the said article, answer to that one came there none. Probably he just dismissed me as some dreadful old denier, because generally people only ask such questions if they're on the other side. I happen to think we all do better if we can strip out the covert campaigning from the public service broadcasting, because nothing feeds the cynicism of those who remain unconvinced than seeing those sorts of games being played. If I get triggered by anything, and I'm not easily triggered, it is the fact that everywhere I look I see articles stating opinion or ideology justified by the addition of the phrase experts say or scientists believe. I'm not saying this was an especially nefarious article. It could have been put up as an opinion piece. I wouldn't have batted an eyelid. But in this form, it's just one item in a drip-by-drip feed of activists masquerading as scientists and campaigning masquerading as public service broadcasting.